A number of years ago, it struck me that, one of the fun aspects of working with a large physician group is we all have had many of the same training experiences, the death-defying moments, the hours of boredom, the moments of terror, the apologies. We've all been through it at one point or another. And because of those sort of shared cultural issues, I thought, wow, maybe it's the culture itself that is contributing to the challenge that we face. Here's what I mean. The punchline of our time together the next hour or so is going to be that the training process itself, the selection criteria, medical education, internship, residency, fellowship, the whole show contributes mightily to creating a barrier to quality and safety improvement. That's the take-home message. This is not a comfortable message because obviously we've got an issue here. And the issue then becomes, well, could we possibly change the training and culture message? Can we get into this system early enough to change the behavior that we face down the road? That's the sort of end game that we'll be thinking about at the end of the day today. But the main issue that we're going to tackle, I think the main take-home point is, guess what? It's not a surprise that we have such a challenge teaching the tenets of quality improvement and error reduction. The reason it's not a surprise is, paradoxically, we have created the culture that creates the barrier to improvement. That's the take-home message. Now, to get us in the mood to talk about this somewhat difficult, uncomfortable issue, I have a couple of leading questions to ask you. Then I'm going to read you 2 paragraphs from one of Don Berwick's early books, and then we'll get into the slides together. Let me also warn you, aspects of what we're going to do is not going to feel good because, again, we're all part of this culture. And so the recognition, if you would, the abreaction, the insight aspects of it aren't going to feel good. But I hope once you confront the boogeyman, we'll figure out a way around him, under him, over him, or through him one way or another. Okay, so let's start. So raise your hand if you've never had trouble finding a lab test on a patient. No hands go up. Okay. Raise your hand if you've never had trouble finding a patient's chart in the hospital. Okay, awesome. Raise your hand if you've never had trouble finding your patient in the hospital. Right, okay. Now let's take it in reverse. Imagine, somebody raised his hand, yikes, okay. Okay, now let's try it in reverse gear. So imagine the following day. You go to work and there's no traffic. And you get to work and your colleagues, nurses, doctors, pharmacists, everybody seems to be in a pretty good mood. Every chart that you look at has a complete problem list and medication list, which is current. Every referral letter from subspecialists are there in the chart at the time you're seeing the patient. And you got a parking spot in the morning, which is relevant if you work in Center City, Philadelphia. Now, okay, wait, okay, so there you go. So now the follow-up question is, what is your ride home going to be like? What will you be worried about? Okay, so the issue is what you'll be worried about is a bolt of lightning will come down and strike you because you've been in a dreamlike state the entire day. In that, of course, here's the issue. You and I have become inured, accustomed to complete process failure. We are surrounded by process failure. Therefore, when things work the way they ought to, you start to wonder, am I in a dream or is this a real-life situation? So part of the story of not being able to find the lab slip and all of that is to illustrate in part you're being surrounded by process failure. But that's the easy message. That's the easy message. Let me read to you the more difficult message sort of set up by process failure and how process failure sort of ties into the culture from training that we all share. So this is page 16 from a 1994 book by Don Berwick that we alluded to earlier called Curing Healthcare, C-U-R-I-N-G, Curing Healthcare. I don't expect you to remember the reference. I just want to read you 2 paragraphs written by Don very early on in the quality journey and how it connects to what we're about to engage in together. And while I read these 3 paragraphs, I want you to be thinking, does this sound familiar to you or not? That's the main issue. All right, here we go. It's midnight, and the new intern is meeting with the supervising junior resident. The intern has just done a spinal tap on a patient with suspected meningitis. Okay? What the spinal fluid show under the microscope, the junior resident asks of the intern. Already, my gastric juices are flowing here. Okay. I'm not sure yet, the intern answers. The lab hasn't phoned down its report. Well, that answer is completely unacceptable, the junior resident chides of the intern. That's your patient in there, and as far as you're concerned, nobody has looked at the spinal fluid until you yourself have. Do it now, doctor. So, of course, in the days of the giants, people actually looked at their own CSF fluid, but okay, we'll take it at face value. So here's the punchline. The junior resident didn't phrase it this way, but he might have said the following. Never, doctor, accept a role as a component of a system producing care. Your identity as a physician should always reflect the theory that you and you alone are responsible for the care of the patient. You are a cog in nothing. The care stems from you. You take the burden, you take the credit, and if it fails, you take the blame. So Don goes on to say, it's a wonderful message, full of drama, motivation, pride, and generosity, and it is completely wrong. And it is completely wrong. Well, if this message is completely wrong, what you just heard, we've got a huge cultural barrier we're going to need to confront and overcome to measure and improve the quality and safety of care, because I would bet that everybody in this audience was listening, had experience just like this, and then all of a sudden to be told that this message, yes, filled with drama, pride, motivation, and all the rest, is wrong, something is not right. And that's what we're going to tackle together. Okay? All right, so let's get into, again, you're in section 11 in our material together. Let me set up what the issues are. Then we're going to go through some tightly held cultural beliefs, and then we'll sort of juxtapose those cultural beliefs that we've all been taught with the beliefs built into process improvement, quality improvement, safety, re-engineering. And when we put these side by side, I think we're going to have some fun together. All right. So what are some of the disturbing realities that you and I face? We are pretty well prepared in the science basis of medicine. Yeah, let's hope so. We're pretty well prepared in the skills necessary to care for individual patients, as we've been talking about, and the differences between individual patient versus population of patients. Few of us, however, are qualified or trained with the skills to improve care and improve patient safety. As we said together earlier, we have 2 jobs. Job 1, to do the job. Job 2, to improve what it is we do every day. The challenge is, of course, we're not trained to do job 2. That's essentially what this is starting to tell us. So if you believe that we don't have these skills, where would you get them? What are some of the skills then, in addition to, of course, attending the 3 phases of quality? What are some of the skill sets necessary to overcome the challenges? So what are some of the skills? And then I want you to be thinking as we go through the list, gee, where did I ever have access to any of these skills? Where do they come from? Where could I go to get them? Better yet, how was your training? How would you stack it up against this list of the skill set? This is an important part of what we're trying to achieve. So, number 1, work effectively in teams. I won't ask for a show of hands who had any formal training in teamwork. How about if we put it this way? Do you believe that teamwork is teachable? What do you think? Yeah, well, coming from the West Point of capitalism, namely the Wharton School, you best believe teamwork is teachable, and every other great business school in the country.